All right, everyone, welcome back into another NFL video. Going to be breaking down the Sunday Night Football matchup between the New York Jets and the Pittsburgh Steelers. There's actually a lot to get into. This is going to be a fun game to break down. Let's get into it. And so let's go ahead and get into a game preview here. Always like to start off with the game preview, just kind of going over the expectations for the game and just going over the news and notes. So what we're going to see here is that this is a low-scoring game, projected to be a low-scoring game, 40 points or so. Now, the New York Jets obviously just acquired Davante Adams. That's a big bump for them, and I think we're going to see him play instantly. He's going to take over for those Mike Williams snaps and probably a little bit for Allen Lazard. That's going to be a big bump for that Jets offense. It'll be interesting to see kind of how Breece Hall gets going, but I will say the 2 points is definitely crazy. That they're only favored to win by 2 points with the addition of Davante Adams. I actually think that that is huge. People have been bashing Aaron Rodgers for playing an extremely good game last week. I kind of mentioned that really after this week, but from week 10 on, they have one of the best schedules. And let's say the Jets make the playoffs. Aaron Rodgers could be a little bit of a decent MVP bet because of that schedule. And if they obviously make the playoffs, that's going to be because he played like he did last week, which was pretty darn elite. And so if Adams looks like he did at the start of the season, if he truly wasn't injured, which I think we all would say Adams really wasn't injured, then this whole offense should be good. Adams still one of the best receivers in the league, paired up with Garrett Wilson now as well. That's going to make that offense a great threat. So I think everyone just kind of elevates actually in that offense. Looking at the Pittsburgh Steelers, they made the change that a lot of people aren't going to like, but they made the change to, or are expected to make the change to Russell Wilson. Now, a lot of people are confused as to why that happened. I touched on this a couple weeks ago. I'm like, really the best thing for the Steelers that could happen is for them to lose so that they could actually start Russell Wilson without having any backlash to that. They went ahead and made that decision anyways. The reason why, guys, is pretty simple. Justin Fields, although he has a winning record, really hasn't been that good. He's been able to do mostly what's been asked of him, especially running the football. He's been able to do that. The way to sum it up is he's basically been doing enough to not lose you games, but he's not doing enough to be a quarterback that can win you games. Russell Wilson has been that quarterback in the past. Heck, he was that last year as well. He was also a quarterback mostly that was not losing you football games as well. So if he can be a little bit better, they go from being, playoff contenders, true playoff contenders, to actual Super Bowl contenders if they can actually get a little bit of a better look. It just makes sense. If Wilson struggles, you can go back to Fields. Likely he's going to be about the exact same. If he's a little bit better, again, you get a little bit better production out of this whole offense. So I like it. It makes this game much more exciting as well. But from that standpoint, both teams are pretty healthy. We take a peek at the snaps, and I was a little bit surprised at the lack of production that Tyler Conklin had last week. And we actually saw Runkert get a decent amount of work in that game, which not overly surprising that they were doing a lot of 2 tight end sets in that game last week because that was kind of the weakness in the defense. I don't exactly see that happening this week, especially with Davante Adams there. I think we're going to see a lot of 3 receiver sets, maybe some 10 personnel, but just a lot of 11 personnel. I think that's going to be the base formation now. So I think Tyler Conklin's going to still see that same amount of work, and then Runkert's snaps are just going to go down a little bit, probably more close to this 33% of the snaps that he was seeing. Looking at the receiver snaps, I just think we're going to see the Mike Williams snap from like 71% that you saw 2 weeks ago. I think that's instantly just going to go to Davante Adams again. We're going to see Allen Lazard probably lose a little bit of snaps, but again, we're not too worried about that. Looking at the snaps then for the running back position, Breece Hall saw his most snaps last week. Braylon Allen did have a touchdown called back, kind of a sloppy holding call that really didn't change the play. I think Allen would have still scored on that play. So again, my concern at the start of the season with Breece Hall as like a fantasy football asset was the fact that Braylon Allen could and has taken away goal line work. I still think that's going to be part of the equation. Braylon Allen continues to look good, but we are going to see this still be the Breece Hall backfield with Braylon Allen supplementing him a little bit. For Pittsburgh, we look at the snaps. Jaylen Warren did look really good last week. Najee looked pretty good as well. That's the issue. You can't really take away snaps from Harris and just give them to Warren because Harris, whenever you do that, he starts to pop. So it's annoying. Mostly, I don't like touching either of those two. Tight end wise, I would imagine that they try to go back to this again. Probably a lot of 12 personnel, so a little bit of Darnell Washington and a decent amount of Pat Freiermuth. The question is, will they be able to throw the football? And they have been spreading out the snap counts, extremely annoying with their receiver snap allocation. Calvin Austin is someone I thought would average more than 50% of the snaps per game, which he is, but I thought it'd be more like what Van Jefferson has been seeing, where for the most part, he's getting a bunch of snaps. That has not been the case. It's been a lot of, again, 2 tight end sets, so thus the receiver snaps have been significantly reduced. So let's go ahead and get into it, guys. Looking at it, both defenses have been extremely great. That's kind of the issue that we have here. But again, if Rodgers looks as good as he did last week, really you take out the game in which he traveled to Minnesota, which I mentioned. Didn't expect him to play well. He just doesn't travel well, especially in a situation like that. He's a 40-year-old guy. I mean, it just makes sense that he wasn't loose in that game. I don't want it to seem like I'm creating excuses for him, but that's kind of how it's went. And same thing with the Niners. Like, you'd kind of take out those two games that you really should not have been expecting him to play well in. And he's been pretty darn solid, especially in matchups that are difficult. Against the Tennessee Titans, to have 2 touchdowns, that's elite production, especially in retrospect. To have a good game against the Patriots, especially at that time, 2 touchdowns, that Patriots defense I know didn't look good today as I'm recording this, but prior to that had been pretty good. And then Denver, yeah, that was an ugly game. We know that. Denver is one of the best pass defenses in the league. He has literally faced basically every great defense thus far, and he's doing that again against the Steelers. Don't get me wrong. Again, that's why I think even if he plays like he did against Buffalo, which I'm not really expecting, but that's why I think past week 10, once that schedule gets super appealing, he could really go off. Like, people, it's just great. People, I don't get the hate. I'm like, people are just not paying attention, I guess. He's played great. He has played at an MVP caliber type season. If you put him against the Jaguars, some of those easier matchups, he's crushing them. But for DFS purposes, I think the only way we can play him is mostly in our flex. The issue is that, again, it is a tough matchup. And although I really love getting to all the top end weapons, I think it's going to be a highly concentrated pass offense now. A lot of Devontae Adams, a lot of Garrett Wilson still, decent amount of Breece Hall. Like, they're all going to get used in the passing game. And Allen Lazard is still priced up as well, which is going to make the lineup process much more difficult. But really, guys, it does seem to be as simple as this. This is what we are looking at. Maybe we can look at Runkert a little bit. I don't expect to see too much of him, but this is literally going to be our lineup process for this game. Maybe we can get to Tyler Conklin, but there's no real reason to go crazy with it. If you want to put Braylon Allen in the captain spot, hoping for like a random touchdown, maybe gets like 10 points and not everyone else is scoring to, potentially get that best value you can, sure, like maybe 5% of bills, but we don't need to go crazy with it. Then we go ahead and jump on into the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't mind the price tag of Russell Wilson, but again, this is a difficult matchup going against the Jets for him. Kind of feel bad for him, getting probably one of the more difficult matchups and going to get started. I kind of expect them to lose, but also I think that's why they started him. They're like, we need the slight upgrade at the quarterback position to give ourselves a chance to win. But I already know the narratives. I printed off tomorrow's newspaper, and people are going to be saying Jets win. Terrible decision to go with Russell Wilson as the quarterback, even though he probably played a little bit better than Justin Fields would have. But we can't look past that. That's going to be tomorrow's newspaper, I'm telling you. In terms of like who I want to be on, especially in the captain spot, I actually really like Jalen Warren. Again, he looked good last week in terms of burst. You saw the big playability be there. And so if he's going to get used in the passing game, he had 3 targets in that game, really not playing his full allotment of snaps. If he gets that production again, I'm going to be more than happy to play him in the captain spot. And at that price tag right now, to me, he's one of the more crucial plays to be on. Now, let's just say you are loading up on the Packers, the New York Jets offense. Calvin Austin could be a good play where he's going to be forced to play a little bit more. Where they're playing from behind, then Calvin Austin does become a good play. I do think he's a solid like GPP captain flyer, where he might be forced into a big game, so I don't hate that. Van Jefferson as well. He's playing a decent amount of snaps. Not going to get a lot of work, but as price tag, he certainly is in play. And then kind of given the weird constraints that we have on the slate, I don't hate the idea of even playing like Washington, like in this build where we are just trying to load up on all the Jet studs. I don't hate the idea of playing him like in the captain spot in that specific build. But again, that's not going to be optimal. What we'd probably be looking at, Jalen Warren, captain pick. And then from there, maybe Conklin, maybe Jets D, probably in this build, Jets D. Something like that. That's really what we're going to be looking at. So I do want to show you guys the lineup builder, showing you guys kind of what that's telling us to do. And so again, just to get it to run, we need to give it 2 data points to go off of. So we're just rounding here, whatever. We're just going to generate do 20 lineups, see what it tells us is the most optimal build. I'm sure it's going to put in the 2 DSTs, but we'll see. And I was kind of right. So Steelers DST, Jets DST. Again, guys, I get why it's doing that. This happened for the Jags and New England game where I said we don't really want to be doing that. So I'm just going to show you guys the player group real quick. I want at most one of Jets DST in the captain spot, Jets DST in the flex spot, and then I want at most one of Steelers DST in the captain spot, at most one of Steelers DST in the flex spot. And then when we run it again, we'll see if that's a little bit more optimal. So it is still giving us a little bit of Steelers D there, but then Chris Boswell, and that's another thing I'd run out there. I don't really want to be playing 2 kickers in DSTs. It's just not going to be optimal, I don't think. And so I think this is a better representation of kind of what we're looking at here. But I do think another rule that I'm going to create here for this specific showdown slate is if a lineup, let's say, includes Aaron Rodgers, I don't want Steelers DST in the captain spot or vice versa. So like what I would do is when a lineup includes Steelers captain, not going to have any Rodgers. I'm also going to do Jets D for Russell Wilson. It just wouldn't correlate. And so that's another thing I'm going to do here. But I want to give you guys a good starting point to go off of. Now, that's going to be all for today's video. I do want to remind you guys of the promo code that's currently going on the website. Use the promo code KeepCash and get 20% off your first 9 to 5 membership. Make that $10 membership $8 for the first month. You get access to all the tools that you saw in this video. Head over to 9to5sports.com. Get access to the NFL lineup builder, the NFL cheat sheet, all the prop tools for NFL, NBA is coming up as well. Get all the fancy golf tools as well. All right, guys, make sure to leave a like, comment your favorite play. That's going to be all. Thanks for watching. And as always, let's keep cashing.